maybe we can jump right into the slides a little bit.
Sure. Let me go into presentation mode. Is everybody able to see? Anne, can you see the presentation as well?
I can see it.
Okay, perfect. Good.
Okay, so yeah, that's the title. So just to give some clarity on the process, and exactly that's where I wanted to go now. Thank you. So if the first chapter is going to be my mission, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I do, what my mission is when I work with a client, and also what my mission is for today, because today I am also presenting and I want this to be a rich opportunity for you. So, and the second chapter is going to be my work up close. We're going to take a closer look at my processes. So you're really going to see a lot of visual material directly from my project. I'm going to speak about my challenges and my solutions. And yeah, just you're going to see a lot. And lastly, we're going to have a little quiz, or we're going to start a little two-way street in this to have your opinion on things and your input on things as well. So there's going to be 2 questions directed to you in the course of this presentation or this webinar. So we can switch to the, yeah, this is my first question to you. So I hope this works this fall, but it should work. I tried it. So have you ever worked with a visual designer before? And then we can differentiate a little bit in what kind of project. Maybe you want to say something about that. So you can click on this. You can copy and paste the link, or you can also photograph the QR code with your phone and answer the poll directly. Please let us know if it works, but actually it should work. I tested it, so feel free to try this, to do this, and to.
And Anne, you're copying the slide in, right? The results. Is that what we agreed
Yes.
to do?
In the end, we are going to have a little visual about the yes and no's, especially. And then I'm going to go a little bit into the text answers as well, and just maybe picking some examples from your input and working with that and preparing and starting the Q&A with that a little bit. I think that will be very beneficial. So yeah. So maybe, I don't know how long, how much time it takes to answer this little question and to find it and all.
Is everybody ready? Everybody okay? Did it work with this survey hero? Almost. Okay. Let's give everybody another second.
So it works, obviously. That's very nice to hear.
Okay. Very curious to see what kind of experiences everybody has.
Yes.
Done. Okay, I think we're good.
Yeah, great. It's going to be active, so there's no time problem. You can also do it while I'm speaking. So my mission is going to be just about basically my values as a designer and my methods. So why I do things the way I do it and how I do things the way I do it. So we can switch to the next slide. So first of all, is the first value that I find, or the standard that I have for myself, is understanding the client, and connected to this is also creating the right target group for myself. So for example, my target group is startups and businesses who are working with, or who are creating a product that has a very strong sensual aspect. So it can be a refined type of food or beverage, or it can be something that is artisanal in some way, because I have a very good communication with these clients and they appreciate my work a lot. So this is part of this understanding and this going back and forth with them. So the second one is techniques from analog to digital. I'm going to speak about that in detail while we are going through the close-up on my work. The third one is transformation that works. So basically transforming all the challenges of a project into a solution that is really a big, very beneficial for the client. So that's also very important to me. And one point that I want to communicate today is the value of design. So this is the fourth point. So while I'm speaking and showing, I hope to share with you the value and the sophistication and the thrill of design basically. So yeah, that's that. So we can jump to the next one. So I'm about to show 3 examples of my work. These are the 3. And I want to say one thing about the challenges about each one. And during the webinar, during the next steps, we are going to see what solutions I found to those. So for Dankeschön, it's a natural juice mix and it's a startup. And they are very much into the ingredients of their product. And my job was to create a logo, which is at the same time a label for the bottle. So it was it has several functions, and they wanted to have the ingredients in the logo. And that was a big challenge in the beginning, because how do you bring all the fruit and vegetables into the logo without making it too much, you know? It should be minimal. The logo should be in some way minimal. So that was my challenge for this. The second one is Bolle. It's a fine bakery, and they wanted a logo which is very minimal as well and works in a very small print as well. And at the same time, they wanted their artisanal bakery and their sophisticated traditional bakery skills to show in this logo. So this was the challenge here and the thing I had to balance as a designer. And the third one is the Lowland cover. It's an artist magazine, and my job was to create a cover design for it. And the challenge was to represent the multitude of artists and artistic disciplines that are coming together in this magazine. So basically to bring all this together on one layer, which then will be the cover. So, and yeah, that's my 3 challenges. And if you want to see more, feel free to visit my website, which is in the link below. So let's jump right into the next one. Yeah, now we're going to take a closer look at the work and how I solved these challenges that I just showed to you. So yes, so understanding the client. For this I took the first example, so the Dankeschön logo for the juice. I'm going to show this example and speak about understanding the client. So communication is of course key. In the beginning of every project, there is a longer conversation in the beginning. It can be by telephone or in a meeting. And what I want to find out in that meeting is what the client is thrilled about when it comes to their product. So that's very important to me, and what their overall style is. So do they already have some materials that are visual? Do they already have some formal language, of course? And in this case, I was also, right from the beginning, it was a lot about the business values of the guys from Dankeschön, because they are so much about their product. And that's why I chose this photograph, because they are so much about the natural ingredients, and they do have so many ideas to show that. So if we go to the next, yes. So on the left, we can see the production process of their juice. And I was thinking, okay, now my challenge is to bring all this together, the production, the ingredients, and how do I do this? So I just took, I went to a light table and I took a glass bowl and I just poured water into it, and then I added real fruit juices and vegetable juices as color. So I used the ingredients as colors, basically, as liquid colors. And if we jump to the next one, we see the results that I created with this. So on the left, we can see a direct photograph from my set, basically my photo studio where I worked. And this is what happens when you experiment with different juices. I didn't know this before. It was an experiment for me, but the effects were really great. And so I decided to stick with this solution or this path to a solution. And I created a collage in Photoshop, putting the different color layers from the light table together. And so I came up with the backdrop for the actual logo. And I layered those because I needed an even distribution of colors to make the typography stand out in the end. So yeah, and I added weeks later because the time aspect is really important in this, because you have to, of course, there was a lot of communication with the client as well, and we went back and forth, and everything needed to be balanced. So this, I want to emphasize that this creative process is really something you need some time for. So it really took several weeks to get where I finally got, and the client was very happy with it. And yeah, it was a very rewarding experience to do this logo. So that's to show the aspect of understanding the client and to working with their ideas or their ideals that they have in mind as well. So we can jump to the next one.
Just quickly here, like I
Yeah.
asked whether they liked the logos, and they, very many said they like this one particularly, and here they say I love the process, nice picture and result. And I think what is quite amazing is that you actually use the product
Yes.
to create the logo. That's quite, and playing with the thing. So that's really fascinating.
Yes, it also was a big experiment to me, as I said, and it was so nice to see how it worked. So I used different temperatures of juice because then they mix in a way that looks beautiful. And of course, I had to do a lot of trial and error to get to this lovely looks, but it was worth it in the end. So yeah. So yeah, now we're at the point of techniques from analog to digital. So as I already hinted, I'm always starting with an analog sketch or some other way of analog work at first to find a concept, basically, for the logo in this case. So I always carry a journal with me. I always have some sheets of paper with me wherever I go, and I'm always scribbling. So I had this idea among many other ideas. So this is only one of several sketches I do in 1 hour or in one day. And then comes the point where I choose, okay, I want to take this to the next level. So when I do this, then I have my sketch which is already pretty defined. And then I scan it and then I vectorize it with Adobe Illustrator. And in the center, I hope you can see it, the little blue anchor points. You as a designer, you work a lot, or I work a lot with those to give a real fine tuning to all the lines and to define their thickness and their curve and everything. So I created these, I had these flourishes already, so these nice shapes that look very elegant. And then my job in Illustrator was to really balance them out and of course, to do some extra work to find the right symmetry, I always flip the design as well, and to look at it in when it's like in a mirror picture, because then you see some gaps in thickness, and I look at it from closer and further away, and all that is what I do in Illustrator. And in the end, I define the color, and yeah, I talk to the client again, of course, about the color and all that. And yeah, it's a very nice moment too then, when it's in the stadium as it is on the right side, to finally present it to the client. And many times the clients, they are dreaming about a nice logo for a longer time, and then it's really a dream come true for them when they see a logo that is picturing their ideas in a nice way. So
I can imagine it's probably something they are going to use, for years, if not much longer.
yes.
How do you know it's ready? Because you explained that it, really took specific care so that everything, the proportions, they work out well, the curves are nice. You can probably spend forever, but at some point you need to say, it's good enough or it's perfect. How do you do that?
Yeah, it's, of course, it's always a balancing act to find this, because as as a designer and creative person, you need to be perfectionist at the same time, and then also let it go when it's ready and not to do too much to it. And I think it's an intuitive impulse that you all, and a feeling that you get when it's finished. And of course, it's also, I'm often also communicating with the client, and by the time I'm at this finishing line, I have a very good feeling for what they want, and then it just is something that manifests itself. It's just an intuitive thing. Yeah, I would say. So yeah, if there's no questions about this, we can jump to the next one.
Are there any questions? Let's give them maybe a second if they have questions on the work.
Reflect on it a little bit. Yeah.
Seems okay. What is it for? Somebody's asking. Armando is asking, what is it for?
This is for a bakery, basically. Maybe you can see the pretzel on the top right of the logo. A little hint to it. In one of the flourishes, there's a hidden little pretzel. So it's a bakery on the outskirts of Hamburg, and it's a really recent logo. It's I made it this spring. So they are just building their brand, and now I contributed this logo. So.
And then I think bread and baking in Germany is special. I think
Yes.
Germans are really obsessed with bread,
Yes.
and it's really an art, much more than mass production. At least we try to protect them.
Yeah, and it's something really artisanal, and they are very much about tradition and recipes, and yeah, that's why these flourishes come into place.
Joan Lena asks, if it's intuitive, how do you define the time it will take to design your logo, and maybe also with that, discuss a price or something like that with the client?
Yes, of course, I'm also on a schedule like everyone. It's not like I'm absolutely free to take several years off to create a logo, at least not yet. So yeah, of course, it's a balancing act. It also depends on how much or how many projects I am having at the same time. So how thin I have to spread myself, basically, and how many hours I can spend working on. Normally, when I talk to the client first, I also speak about what their idea, how much they want to invest in the logo, of course. And then I get an idea of how much time I can put into it. And then if we see we need more time, then we have to renegotiate. That's, of course, an important part in this whole thing. Yeah.
And Wasim has a question on, I think, on a little bit on the creative process. how do you deal with the blank page problem? The way I understand it is that he says, how do you get started? You know, there's nothing in the beginning. How do you,
Yeah,
how do you avoid the problem of, sitting in front of the blank sheet of paper in the beginning?
I think it's a very good cure to not expect the first thing that you draw onto the page to be perfect. Just start and don't expect it to be perfect from the beginning. I make 100 sketches and one of them is really good. So, and I say this as an experienced designer. So I think it's really important to have this attitude towards yourself and just scribble something that can be funny. You're never going to use it, but maybe it takes you to another idea, and that's important as well. So just go easy on yourself.
Yes, you have to. Yeah. There's another question. How do you sync your vision of the logo product with the customer vision? Are there some techniques?
Of course, it's very important to have a target group that is in a basic sync with you already. That's why I have these businesses that are into some kind of sensual product, so as something to eat or to drink or something having to do with art. So this creates a basic common language already. And how I sync my language with them is I don't use a lot of special terms. Of course, I try to speak in a language that everyone can understand when I talk to a client, because I don't want to create this cold distance or this kind of mystery. That's why I also want to demystify the process today. I think it's very good to be approachable for the client and to have this general attitude towards them when you are starting out to work with someone you don't know at all at this point. So I think that's very important. And the rest normally figures itself out during the communication process.
Well, I see there are some people who are really interested in also maybe designing themselves. So here's a question from Gabriel Boller. So is the process for you always that you first draw the logo and then numerize it?
Normally, I have a quite exact sketch when I do it by hand, so with my pencil or my pen. Or in other times, it can also happen that I have only a very rough idea and then I work a lot on it typically, so that it really becomes a series. And I start with one edit of it, and then I copy it, paste it, and change something about it. And then I am not scared to lose anything. And in the end, I have 20 or 100 different steps and versions of one logo, and it can completely change, of course. It's never, every process is different, so they're all unique.
And here a very technical question from Gabriel Siegel. Is the logo in B color, for example, the name in gold and the lines in black?
No, it's only in gold. The outline has no colors to it. You can only see the blue outline on the central picture because I wanted to show them, because they are the vectors, but the result itself doesn't have a line color in this case.
Great. I think all questions answered. I see people get really like your designs and the way you go towards it. So
that's so nice. It's so, yeah, it's such a pleasure for me as well to get your input, because, yeah, I think it's a two-way street to have this webinar. Yeah. Okay, so we can switch to the next one, the last close-up of my work, basically. Here it was my job to create a cover design for the Lowland Artist magazine. And the special thing about this is that it's an artist magazine from artists for artists. So it's about artistic exchange and creating a platform for artists to exchange their positions and to influence each other. So that's very important. And also, I'm also a founder of this magazine. So I was in a double role of client and basically designer or service provider. And I always had to switch back and forth. And as I already mentioned, the challenge here was to bring the multitude of different artists from all kinds of disciplines together in one visual element, which is the cover and which stands for all of them when you have the magazine in your hands. So at first, on top of the image, you can see that I worked with sketching again as a first impulse to go from. And then I started to create these lino prints. So I had these little knives and carved into the linoleum and just did some test prints. And while I was playing around with this, I found that these, and also in the sketch, I had a rough idea of it, to create these water animal-like shapes that are merging into each other, and there's not really any space in between them. They are all just, they seem to be right where they belong, but they are still sharing a lot and really reacting to each other in a physical way. So they bend and everything goes into each other. And that was very important for me to visualize this exchange and influence of the artists, but not making them lose themselves. So the shapes are still very present. So that was the solution basically was to bring the multitude onto the surface and into the visual. So that's what I did. And then the second step, we can see on the next slide. The second aspect, as you can see, the two women on the left, Christiana and Damaris, they are my two co-founders of the project. And we used a very old, I think it's 60 years old, printing machine at Künstlerhaus Stuttgart. And we used this machine to create an edition of 200 pieces of this cover design. And each of them is done in one working step. So each of them is created with the original linoleum patch, but each of them is also a little bit different, and you can also see the physical technique on them. So I also brought the artistic technique into the material, and every magazine cover basically, and every magazine is unique and has this artistic aspect in them, this unique aspect in them. So this was also an important part of my solution and the transformation of this challenge in the beginning into a solution. So yeah, and I think, is there another slide? I'm not sure about this. No,
maybe it's a good time to ask whether there are any questions on this. I mean, this is a completely different project in a way, right, than the other ones.
Yes.
Really, this one in a way the old world a bit, right, with rather traditional techniques.
Yeah.
But a very beautiful outcome there. I really like it.
Yeah, it's true. And this time I really worked with only with an analog technique. That's true. Of course, we showed the magazine on our website and in our Instagram a lot, and then it becomes digital in some way as well. But the manufacturing process was analog in this case. And yeah, Christiana created, she's also a graphic designer, the woman on the left, she designed the insides of the magazine. And I did the cover.
I think I remember that you told me there were still some available, right?
Yes, there are. We still have some. And you can check on our website. We're also making a shop. We are creating a shop at this moment. So there's going to be more to come. And yeah, I'm very happy.
If you want a copy, please please mail Anne Pflug.
Yeah, Sure, you can do that. We're happy to provide some for you.
I like water and all of that. I mean, maybe in the background you can see it, holiday pictures and so on, but also some painting.
Yes.
So that's my mom painting. Actually, she's in the last couple of years become a little bit creative as well. So I really like this one. I think I'm going to get a copy.
That's lovely. I can send one to you if you give me the nice or some address.
Or maybe we can even put it in our office. That would be amazing.
Yes, I would
That would
be
be
happy
fantastic.
to do so. Sure. I already reserved one for you. I'll write it down.
Thank you. That's amazing. Thank you so much. Great. Well, Rita is amazed. She says, I see Gauguin, Picasso, Escher, Warhol. Well done. So big congrats here.
I don't know what to say. That's such a compliment. Thank you.
Well, I think there's no questions for now. Shall we go to the quiz?
Yes, we can go to the next question and just find out what you think about your thoughts on visual design and the future. So, yeah, the next question is, what do you think? Will visual design become even more important in the future, and why?
Let me quickly post here the link again.
Yeah.
So everybody has a chance to go.
So I'm preparing to take a look at the outcome because I should get this in a second as soon as you send your answers. I can already see something here on the first question. That's interesting. I'm going to copy paste this or screenshot this into the presentation. So let me just quickly take a look if this works. Okay. Okay. I can't hear you right now.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Karl Wolfgang. He said there seems to be a problem with the link. Do other people have the same challenge, or does it work for most of you?
Okay. I already have some results. I already copied it into the bottom of the presentation. Maybe you can see it.
I'm sharing again. I don't know what happened there. Well, for some it works, for some it doesn't.
Oh no.
Strange. But I think you can also share your experiences here and maybe comment in the chat if you don't have the opportunity to use the survey results.
Yes, and of course, after the webinar, I can also send you the results if you're curious.
I think in the meantime, while people comment in the chat, there was one last question actually, and Joan-Lena asked, when you are in the sketches steps, do you let your client decide which direction to pursue, or do you decide yourself?
Basically, can you say what you mean by that exactly? Or
I think when you do the initial, sketches,
Yes.
You know, obviously you have a vision maybe where you want to go, but
Yeah.
maybe is that something that you really early on align with the client, or is
Yeah.
that something you bring to, let's say, half results first and then show it to the client?
Mhm.
How do you manage that?
Normally, I go with the flow, or I go with my communication with the client. Some of them just say, "Okay, I want this and this, and now I want to give it to you. Just surprise me, or just not surprise me, but just work on it in your way. I trust you." And then when you have something to show, we talk again. That's one category of clients. So, and the others want to stay very close to the process. And with those, second category, I do some maybe two first sketches that go into a little bit different directions. And then I get a feeling for what they like. So what track to follow, basically. Yeah.
Perfect. Shall we go to the survey results?
Yes, I copied one, the one about the, yeah. So most of them have already worked with a graphic designer, but some of them it's not so, yeah.
Not
It's not, yeah.
not clear. Yeah, some, yeah, but I can see that some really have experience as well.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So, and now I'm going to take a look at the other one. I just left some time for the people to, for everyone to react. Ooh, here it's very interesting. I don't really have to copy it because 12 people just said that they say yes. So, so it's a very clear result for the second question. Everyone said yes. I believe it's going to be more important.
What's your perspective? What do you think, Anne? Do you think it's going to be more important?
I think yes, I agree as well, because I think that technological opportunities are growing more and more, especially when it's about showcasing your products online. And I think that the showcasing has to grow with the possibilities automatically. So, and also social networks are becoming so important in marketing as well, and all the visual criteria that they have are becoming, I don't know if they are becoming more and more diversified, but every social network has their own set of rules. So, for example, Instagram, you need a square, right? And you can do an Instagram story, and it has these certain curated set uh, of possibilities. Facebook has some that are completely different and different rules. It's more, yeah, and I think with all these diverse, you have to become an expert about all these platforms a little bit at least. You need some knowledge about them and how they work and how you can reach your target group with them, and also study your target group and what their visual criteria are as viewers. So I think it's a very important thing, and I think you can't overestimate it, really.
I think from a company perspective, and maybe I can speak a bit to
Yeah.
that side. I think basically, you know, designs are basically what you speak through with regards to your brand, yeah, in many
Yes.
ways. And I
Yes.
think branding, communication, and the way you present yourself as a company becomes ever more important, because yes, some companies can really differentiate and they're really, really different, but
Mhm.
that needs to come across, right? And people need to understand, it needs to be visible. What's the
Yeah.
values you want to transport? What, you know, what really makes you a human company? I think that human touch of companies
Yes.
becomes also more and more important. And I think I think your designs are a great example for that. How, you know, that comes across, you know, and the values and the ideas that people have when they founded the company.
Yes, I agree that it's very important to, yeah, to have something that is linked to a material world, to some kind of, yeah, color, yeah, to some experience, the sensual, yeah, as well.
Um, There's another question here from Wasim. I'm not sure I personally understand. He asks, what about design system to integrate complex projects, processes, and workflows? Is that clear for you, what he's going for?
Well, I'm mostly specialized on logo designs and illustrations, so I'm very much in one, on one level of this. So I create a very simple, or not simple, but a very minimalized, or an arrangement of shapes and colors that is very easy to see, to perceive, and that communicates its insights and the value that is connected to it, the business values of the company or the business to the outside. So I think the question is about a more complex and a bigger picture of linked elements. So, and I'm not an expert in this all over picture of systematic view. What I'm working with is just a corporate design, and to have this in mind to see how the client wants to communicate visually to the outside world. And of course, if you curate, for example, a website or an Instagram account, there's also a structure behind it. It can also be quite complex. And then you just have to create a style sheet, for example, to see what kind of imagery you want to have.
Thank you, perfect. There's one more question from Ems that I should tell that I did not answer yet, or you did not answer. And it's really about the artwork you showed, where you were working with linoleum.
Yeah.
And she's asking a little bit, how does that technique work?
Yeah, I'm very happy to speak a little bit about that.
Maybe I'll go back
Yeah,
because it was quite visible actually here, I think.
Yeah, you actually, so in this picture, I chose this picture because you can see the technique very well. So you have these little knives that we see on top. They have different blades on their top, and you can, in the beginning, you have a piece of linoleum that is completely smooth. So there's no lines or anything in it. It has a smooth surface, and then you can draw something on it. I normally draw on it what I want to carve, because otherwise I would get disorientated. But I just draw onto the linoleum what I want to carve, and then I go into it with the knife and take off the parts that are later on going to be white. So that's also important to bear in mind. You're not, like when you're painting with a pen, you're creating the line of color. But in this case, you are taking away the color. So you're creating in some way a negative image. So what you carve is going to be white.
And in a way, it's like reverse printing, right? In the end, so you create like a stamp almost, right?
Yes,
That you later on put on paper.
stamp, exactly. And when you do it by hand, you have a little roll with color on it, with liquid color, and you roll it on top. You have to be careful because there shouldn't be any color in the carving. So it has to be a thin layer of color, and then you flip it around and put it onto a piece of paper. And basically the same thing is done by the machine. You also have to cover it with color by hand, because the machine is so old it can't do it itself. So it's a lot of hand work. And then the machine is basically just it has two cylinders which are very heavy, and it's bringing the paper and the colored linoleum together, and it's creating a result that is more more exact, or there isn't so much color going to the sides, and it's very evenly distributed, but still the results are a little bit different. Each of them is a little bit different.
And that means they're unique, and I think there's also you cannot do it forever, right? So there's only a few, I don't know, hundreds that you can make?
Yeah, there's only a limited edition. Of course, we could go there and take the linoleum and do some more, but it's this edition is unique because it was made at this point of time, and with this special mix of colors, you have to mix them together. And if you make another second edition, it's a different edition. So it's very limited. Yeah.
Then Rita has a question on the types of systems, software you used. Do you use Mac or PC or both? And because she's saying probably you need a lot of processing power. And can you recommend a baseline? I think baseline you mean, Rita, if I understand correct, you mean what's the minimum you should have to be able, for example, to work with Illustrator and the other tools you're using?
I'm really not an expert with these things. I just hear it when my MacBook Pro is really going crazy, and it really sounds like a hair dryer, you know.
So the more the merrier.
Yeah, then I give it a break. Okay. But yeah, I think the biggest challenge was for the big photography, because I took raw pictures when I was doing the Dankeschön logo with the juice on the light table, and I wanted to have maximum resolution, so I took raws with my Canon EOS camera, and
they're quite big, huh?
Yeah, and they are very big, and if you layer them on top of each other, it's a very it has to calculate a lot and stuff. Yeah, but it's I think you should ask. You just ask if you want to buy a new notebook. You just ask, is it appropriate for Photoshop and also video editing? You can also ask about video editing, because that always needs more, because it's motion picture, and then you are absolutely safe to be okay with Photoshop and everything else.